Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Spontaneous human combustion. It was once a leading topic on shows featuring fringe topics, but not much is being said about this mysterious phenomena anymore. The subject goes back hundreds of years, and as recently as a decade ago, it was still being reported. But what is behind these mysterious deaths in which people are said to suddenly be consumed by a fire from within? A fire so hot that somehow it reduces bone to ash, all the while leaving common combustible materials untouched. Is it a case of runaway psychokinesis, aliens, or something truly supernatural? Join us as we delve into the case for spontaneous human combustion on this episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast. Tonight we are going into a very weird topic that we have been intrigued by for a very long time. I used to think it was going to be more of an issue than it seems to maybe be, but tonight we're covering spontaneous human combustion and all kinds of other theories along with it. So this is going to get wild and weird, guys. So how's everybody doing?
Doing good. Doing pretty good.
Doing well.
Good.
Can't complain.
As everybody can see, we have the wonderful Jessie here with us again from Helbent Holler. In case you all are wondering, we just want to give you an update on our regular co-host, Wayne Barnes. He's been out. He's been sick. He should be home soon. That's what we're crossing our fingers for. So this makes a little over a month that he's been out for us, and he's going to be better. He's getting better slowly but surely, and he will be back joining us hopefully in November, and it'll be good times. And then we'll probably have Jessie occurring regularly again at some points in the future, off and on, as often as she so chooses. So, so yeah, it has been a blast having Jessie here and having a different flavor on the show for you guys, and I know you all have enjoyed it as well. And we are going to go ahead and dive into the topic today. So yeah, spontaneous human combustion, guys.
Yeah, you don't hear much about it anymore, do you?
No, you don't.
You really don't.
It felt like whenever I was little, every other episode of Unsolved Mysteries or
something,
Strange Encounters and things like that would run a spontaneous human combustion episode.
That's
almost right. As often as, Shaggy and Scooby were running into quicksand. But
quicksand is another thing, you probably thought you'd have to deal with.
A little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I kind of did deal with quicksand once, though. Kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a mess. We actually have some in Kanawha State Forest, oddly enough. So occasionally I've got to worry about not sinking up to my hips in a few places. But, not very many people go out there.
What about bursting into flames, though?
Yeah, see, that's not up there on my list the way it used to be. I used to have these nightmares.
No, for real. I mean, I can tell you that was something that I thought about growing up. Is like, oh, what if I think the wrong thing? And, because mind over matter, right?
Right.
So what if I think the wrong thing? And all of a sudden, poof,
Well, Ron, I hate to tell you this, but you're not a scanner, so.
Yeah, it was one of those topics that was very, very widely broadcasted, I suppose. And there were a ton of different cases, and certain ones of them could be explained away, but other ones couldn't. And
that's right.
And it goes into so many different avenues. That's what I think why I think I find this topic so intriguing to begin with. is because you've got everything from supernatural effects to UFOs to essentially just lighting yourself on fire and happening to be obese, and this wonderful thing called the Wick Effect, which we will talk about a little bit later.
So a basic definition of spontaneous human combustion, just for anybody who doesn't really know what it is off the bat here, is that their body burns, and it seemingly burns from the inside out without an identifiable fuel source or ignition or anything like that. It seems like they just burn, and it just happens out of nowhere. And it's pretty much a mystery that's been going on for hundreds of years now. So if you haven't heard of that, that's basically what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. And that is essentially it, you know? But is it?
Well, you know, the first case goes back to the 1400s, guys.
It does.
So, you know, and I think that the first description of it was just a little weird in its own way. You know, it was, I'll read it straight from the case book. The first reported case of spontaneous human combustion in the history books is Polonus Vorsticius. I don't know if you say that right, but hey, he burst into flames, so it's not like he's going to complain. Polonus was just a regular Italian knight in the 1400s. He liked wine, women, and song, and he was a good guy, obviously. I mean, you know, who don't like wine, women, and song, right?
Right.
Well, he consumed 2 ladles of very strong wine one night, and it disagreed with him, guys. And people say that he immediately vomited flames and then burst into flames entirely. Okay. I've drank some stuff before that felt like I was going to vomit flames, but I never actually did it. So I don't know. But this is what's weird about spontaneous human combustion is that we can't really write it off in the fact that it's just one of those one-off things. It happens, like you said. I mean, there's many, many cases of this, right?
I think it's over 200 reported cases at this time. Yeah, through the years. And I think the most recent was around 2010.
Yeah.
Yes. That is the earliest, or well, latest one that I can find on the charts is the 2010 event. And you know, so coming from somebody who's you know, grown up in the kitchen world, you know, you've got there's all these fiery shows that we can do, right? Where we go out to the table, we'll do table side torch shows, essentially, where we'll just flambe something right in front of the audience and to get the woo. I mean, if you've ever been to a hibachi,
onion volcano at the Japanese restaurant.
Yeah,
Yes.
the hibachi house onion volcano, you know?
Yes.
Those always catch the eyes of people. So let's just hypothetically say that the strong wine could have possibly been a distillation of sorts and been really strong. You know, that's why it was so strong. And so he could have had a higher concentration of alcohol and maybe thrown up in front of like a candle. Because, you know, back then it was all candlelight torches over there. You know, everything was, you weren't using the electric light bulb. It was just out on the streets.
It was the 1400s. I heard they had LEDs.
Right. So, you know, he could have been drunk and just like threw up some strong stuff and it got on him and then caught him on fire. I mean,
Sure.
There were probably 80s hair metal bands that had the same things happen, but they just didn't burn to a crisp.
I think there was actually.
So
pretty sure.
There was a drag queen on Dragula, the most recent season of Dragula that they just put on. And the drag queen actually was a fire breather. And there was a terrible accident, and the accelerant, which is usually like Bacardi 151 or Everclear or something like that, got on her face and it just burned it completely, and had to have I know that she had to go through a lot of like reconstructive surgery for that. So that does happen with like circus fire breathers and things like that. It's a very, very dangerous trick you have to do. So you have to be very careful with that. So I don't know. Maybe you know, Sir Polonus was trying to do some fire breathing tricks.
He could have been.
Yeah.
An accident.
because he liked the ladies, and
Love-
ladies
Him
like
trying to
fire,
impress.
especially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because we had this thing, one of the restaurants that I worked in, we would all try to show off and be goofy for the clients as well as the wait staff, right? So I never get involved in any of that stuff, right? Ever. No, not me. And so we were fire breathers. We would go out there and we'd do Everclear or 151 like you had said, and we'd just blow it off real quick, everything be fine. Now back then I didn't have the beard, but one of the other chefs who was there did have a beard, and I watched him singe his beard off his face from like the cheeks down. All he had was like really thick sideburns after that, because some of the alcohol, like when he did his spit out, it didn't, it got into his beard, and I don't know if he like hiccuped or coughed or something before he blew, but it got down in his beard and everything. And luckily, we're in a kitchen, you got the dish tank, blast his face with water, he's fine. So luckily he didn't get burnt or anything, but he did lose his beard. And so that can absolutely happen. You can even do it with wine, but man, it's got to be some really potent wine to do it.
Okay, guys, real quick public service announcement here. Do not set yourself on fire. I have a feeling we may be dealing with this. Yes, this may harken back to the MTV days with Beavis and Butthead. Does anyone remember those?
We are professionals.
Yeah, we don't set ourselves on fire. Okay, and don't do that at home or in a restaurant or in your car or anywhere. Unless
you're a trained professional.
Right.
And even then, be really careful.
It's your job then, so it's on you.
So
now,
during a lot of my research, I read account after account after account of victims of spontaneous human combustion. And
please tell me you're drawing the conclusion here of who is spontaneously combusting.
Well, yes, I am. There's a profile that a lot of these people fit, and it's not set in stone or anything like that, but there's a lot of commonalities between the people that are victims of this. It includes high body fat, alcohol consumption, cigarette or pipe usage, advanced age, usually 60 years old or above, and it's more often than not women more than men. And that might also factor into the high body fat, because women usually have higher body fat than men generally.
That is accurate. And the large portion of these are like you said, they're women. That was one of the things is going through. I'm like, man, like either A, these were all really unfortunate women, or B, their husbands figured out a way to just say, I'm done, and light you on fire. It's over.
You just blew up.
Yeah. I don't know what happened, but
'twas the devil.
There you go.
But now some of these people who were affected by this, they weren't your normal smoking people, Right. A lot of the reports, like you said, they were either pipe smokers or they were cigarette smokers. But, you have some that were just very, very, very odd. Kind of like, which was my favorite one. This was one of the ones that showed up on Unsolved Mysteries, actually. And it was the Margaret Hogan case, an 89-year-old widow who lived alone in the house. She was found almost completely burned to the point of destruction, meaning that there were only charred remains of the skeleton left. Now, what's crazy about this is there were plastic flowers that were in the center of the room that were completely reduced to liquid. However, her armchair was still, mostly intact. The heat radiated out in this weird way to where her armchair was intact. She was burned there in the armchair.
Yeah.
It was hot enough to melt the flowers and also melt the screen of her TV that was, I think the report says it was 12 feet away from her at the time, but the armchair was still intact. I mean, armchairs are wooden and metal. and the armchair was intact. The skeleton remains were in there. It's almost as if the flames were directed in a specific way, like that they didn't just radiate out from a central location, but it was almost directionalized. That's weird.
Yeah.
With a lot of these stories, well, most of them actually, the bodies seem like they burn from the top down, and it seems like the only thing that survives is the extremities, whether it be a few fingers or a foot or legs or something like that, and just a little bit of the skull most of the time. And so when you are cremating a body in ovens designed for cremating a body, they go from 2,000 to 3,000 degrees, and it takes hours to do this. It takes like 4 hours to cremate a body. And when that's done, you've got bones left over that they actually have to put into a special machine to grind them up, because they're left over even after that high temperature. But a lot of these cases, and this is really weird, is a lot of these cases, these people are burning at such a high temperature, so hot and so fast, that their bones don't even survive,
It's ash.
It's completely turned to ash. You just basically have this top of the skull with a lot of these stories, and the chair or the bed or whatever they're on seems to be barely even singed or touched or anything, and it just seems like the body itself is the only thing that burned. But you got to think that that's got to be some super high temperatures if it's going to burn through bone like that and that quickly, and it's got to burn very fast, very hot, and then go right out.
Yes, it does. It has to be an almost, I always said it was almost like every cell in the body just exploded, or at least it tried to from a central point, and it just kind of spreads out. Like you said, it kind of seems to dissipate toward the extremities, doesn't it? It's like, it's very strange.
Well,
it's not your
one of the
typical
other
fire.
ones, when you're talking about the extreme heat and then sudden burnout, another one of these that calls to that is Henry Thomas. This one was a man, and he's in South Wales back in 1980. His entire body was incinerated, leaving only his skull, a portion of each leg below the knee. But the crazy thing is, the portions of the leg below the knee were still clothed. So if you've ever been like at a bonfire and accidentally gotten too close and your clothes catch on fire, they go up pretty quick. Clothes are generally really dry. They're cotton or some kind of synthetic blend, so they melt or burn rather quickly. And why these portions of the clothes weren't burned is what's really crazy. Even with part of the clothing being burned and charred, but mostly intact, this dude's skeleton was found essentially wearing clothes, and he'd been charred from the inside out. And this was one of the ones that they chalked up to the Wick Effect, because he was a heavy-set dude. He had, he was a smoker. He was elderly. Again, we're talking about a 73-year-old guy here. So a lot of that soft fatty tissue is really close up there to the surface. And once the Wick Effect starts, the Wick Effect is, think of a candle, and the human body just suddenly turns into this candle, because fat does burn. If you've ever had a grease fire in your kitchen while cooking bacon or something, that's fat. The grease from bacon fat it's fat. And essentially what they're saying is that the human body is reducing like you would reduce fat, and it's burning at an accelerated rate. So how it burned like that, and because again, I've worked in a kitchen forever. I always, had to wear chef coats and all that stuff. And even the protective fireproof clothing that we would wear would sometimes get grease on it. And then that one spot would just sit and burn and burn and burn. Now, if the Wick Effect is taking place, it creates a wet fuel. Liquid fat is wet. If you can wipe it up with a paper towel and it's not getting soaked into his clothes and burning the clothes, that's just really weird to me.
Yeah.
Just based off of the scientific principle of how this works. It's just odd.
So one of my source materials that I used for this was the Death Investigator's Handbook, which
nice.
a very nice little tome that goes through like any kind of like homicide or death investigations, and it goes step by step on how you would investigate that and look into that. And actually, a side note for any
Do we need to like warn Joe now?
I've got.
Is this something that we?
A cool side note about this book, actually, if you're a sci-fi nerd, this was actually Robert Jordan's copy of this book. I bought this from a estate sale from Robert Jordan from Wheel of Time. So
very cool.
Robert Jordan's Death Investigators book.
Very cool.
I know, right? So when I was going through this, I was looking at the section on fire deaths, fire-related deaths, explosion-related deaths, anything like that. And so what kind of explains how the Wick effect actually works is when there is a lot of heat on the clothing above the skin, the heat will start to dry the skin out, and all of a sudden the skin will crack. And when the skin cracks, if there's subcutaneous fat down there, it'll all of a sudden just go up like that. And that's more common than you would think. Like people in super dry environments, if there's a fire, they can catch fire if they have a lot of subcutaneous fat.
Wow.
There was also, when it comes to the Wick effect, what's really, so that kind of explains it. Okay, so that's an explanation for what could cause this, right? Well, they did a bunch of experiments with pigs where they tried to test the Wick effect with pigs. So they took pig carcasses and wrapped them in clothing and like cotton-based clothing that people would wear or whatever. And they set it on fire, but they used accelerants in this. And it still took, I think, 4 hours for the pigs to actually burn. And this is pigs without organs inside of them. They took the organs out of the pigs and then they did the experiment and they used accelerants, and it still took 4 hours for these pigs to burn. When these people die, they have their organs and everything. You're going to burn a lot quicker if you don't have anything in your body cavity. So the Wick effect doesn't quite explain it, because with these experiments, they ended up having to use accelerants. And none of these cases have evidence of any accelerants on anybody's clothing and on anybody's person, anywhere around them. Like, for it to be considered a possible spontaneous human combustion situation, there has to be no accelerants and no reason for foul play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this being easily explained. I never did see it as being easily explained. It's outside the realm of normalcy when you start thinking about it, like you said. I mean, sure, we can burn stuff, but it takes a long time, you know? These are occurring very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, these people are just literally bursting into flames, flaming out, and they're gone just like that. And the heat is so crazy that it's reducing bone to ash.
Yeah.
But it's leaving carpet, you know. Like in some of these cases, there's just a scorched area on the floor and the rest of the carpet's fine. Or like Joe said, the chair's fine. Or, you know, it's just crazy. It makes no sense to me. This is one of those things I never could wrap my head around.
There was one where there was a stack of newspapers, like old newspapers, next to a victim. And I mean, I use newspapers as fire starter all the time. It goes up like that. Yeah. So even like a high level of just heat, not even flame or spark or anything, could ignite newspapers like that. So whatever this is, it just ignites, goes up super hot, super fast, and then goes right out.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
You know, Ron had mentioned earlier that, you know, he was always worried that if he thought the wrong thing, that poof, all of his cells would explode. Well, that was actually a popular theory.
I still think that. So, you know, I'm just afraid I might destroy the universe now. It's all different.
Right. You know, it's that's actually a popular theory that Larry E. Arnold had proposed back in 1995, and he called it the oxidation reduction, where it is essentially that stress or some kind of outside thing that is pressing in on the body. Not physically pressing in, but just, you know, outside stress, something that is placing the body into extreme duress, and then causes this individual to just erupt. Literally, you know, we hear the term like people were getting so mad I could explode.
Yeah.
Well, this was kind of what he was running with.
Right.
And there was his theory was that there was not necessarily a reaction mechanism, but it just occurred. So it wasn't like there was a certain set of, I guess, things that had to be done in exactly the right order for a trigger to be flipped and explosion, the person just burst into flames, but it could just happen under extreme duress.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a really argued book, but it was popular. It was a book called Ablaze. Then in 1976, this is probably one of the oldest books that talked about the circumstances, and they were linking it to poltergeist activity.
So that goes
Interesting.
along with what you're saying about stress. I mean, you've got somebody who's in mental distress or something like that. That sparks poltergeist activity all the time. You hear about that all the time. So yeah, I mean, like it's weird to see how those two are connected, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Spontaneous, it's just, you don't think about it, right? So it's I don't know. I think that was what I was trying to get at. It's like you wouldn't consciously be aware of it, is what I was trying to say earlier. It's like, it wasn't that I'd be sitting there thinking, oh, I'm gonna blow up. It's kind of like you have the wrong thought, so it'd be completely spontaneous and completely out of your conscious mind. And we've been told that the human mind can do some pretty crazy things, right? So
Right.
How much power does a human body have? If we really were to convert it down, how much energy does a human body actually have? You see, we are matter, and if you can say split that matter, right? Or you're a walking atom bomb. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So if something could actually
that's plausible.
trip that, if something could actually trip that, I could see that. But that's just a theory. That's speculation. There's no proof.
Because we do have a electromagnetic field. We produce our own EMF, just to varying degrees, person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like we talked about here on the show before, with some of the CIA experiments, the focusing of mental energy to go out of body to perform certain tasks, telekinesis, and so on. What if somebody did split that atom?
Yeah,
how
by
big
accident.
of a boom would that make?
Right. Could it be a localized boom? And it's kind of like what Jess was getting at, the whole poltergeist activity kind of thing. You can see it because this is all kind of related in that kind of a weird world. This is I could see it. I could just see all these things kind of coming together as, maybe it's not exactly related, but it kind of falls in the same wheelhouse. That's what I'm trying to get at.
There's like a sect of, it's the 6 yogas of Naropa, I think it's called, but they do a lot of like very intense meditation, and people who are practitioners of this, they tell them to make sure that they follow the guidance for the meditation properly, because if they do not follow the guidance properly, then the domo, which is the inner fire, could cause spontaneous human combustion. So if you meditate in the wrong way, that the practice actually tells you that you could spontaneously combust,
So there you go.
There's another theory that's kind of tied to that too, that there's a few people who've discussed it online in a few different forums, but it's the chakra theory, to where it's like a Kundalini activation where all of your chakras open up at once and it causes you to just explode.
Okay, I can actually understand that in a weird way.
That would make some sense, because I've been in scenarios where certain things like that had happened. Luckily, no one exploded, but I did see some really weird stuff take place. And they were, they were active Kundalini practitioners.
Yeah. Okay.
And yes, it was some really, really weird stuff. And but yeah, that could be that. It's plausible. It's all of that bound up energy that whatever's going on inside us having a caustic,
right? It's potential energy
explosion. And you see the same kind of stuff with not so much with like people burning up and catching a blaze and whatnot, but that is a very prominent verbiage that's used throughout various spiritual faiths, particularly with Christianity, is burning with the spirit, things of that nature. And fire holds a very strong significance with a lot of religions. There's certain things that are completely, I guess you could say, described as fire, for lack of any better terms. But that's really interesting. I never heard about the Kundalini. Essentially, all of the things coming in line at one time and causing the explosion. But
that is interesting. I mean, I did find that because I was curious. I wanted to see how much energy we do have. Typically, it says that we exhibit about 110 watts in 24 hours, but there can be peaks of 2,200 watts of energy released for no less than 1 second, though. Now, let's think about that. So
maybe that's where like all my good ideas come from. It's like lightning, one brilliant flash, and then
that's what it is, though. But think about that one brilliant flash. If we can actually produce 2,200 watts of energy in less than 1 second, I mean, it kind of lends to the possibility that it may go higher than 2,200 watts for some people. And, watts is a direct relation. You can convert that to heat. So, 110 watts, that's kind of warm, but 2,200 watts, that's pretty hot.
So if we convert. I wonder if because of our capacity to I guess have those short bursts, that's one of the things that allows people, other than wearing the metal suit, in the Tesla coil projects that they do, where they'll basically wear the chainmail suit and go out
like a Faraday cage kind of thing,
and get in the Faraday cage. I wonder if that's part of the reason that we are able to sustain that, is because we're capable of actually, for that much time, being able to produce that much energy ourselves.
I don't know, but I just thought it was kind of fascinating that it would be that high. I was figuring 300 watts, but it peaks at 2,000 or so.
Yeah, I mean, that is insanely high.
Yeah, and we don't know everything. This. So if we've recorded 2,000, well, it's probably 5. It could be 10. We don't know, but I could definitely see that.
Like that,
Yeah, just poof. Exactly. That's why I have to keep my mind clear. Doing it right now.
So did either of you guys come across the ball lightning theory?
Yes.
No, do tell.
So this is okay. So I have a tier.
I've actually seen ball lightning, so this is interesting to me.
So I have a tier of the theories I like for spontaneous human combustion, and ball lightning is setting at the number 2 position.
Okay.
Essentially, there's a researcher named John Abramson, and he theorized that it could be possible ball lightning. And as we know, ball lightning is not like what we saw floating around. I think it was 2019 and early 2020, where that alleged ball lightning was filmed going across the train tracks, and it came out being that was a college project.
Total CGI, yeah.
Yeah, that's not what ball lightning looks like. No. It
doesn't.
Has been captured on film before. Ron has seen it with his own eyes. It's one of the easiest ways that we were able to debunk that whole video to begin with. But the theory is that, these people were sitting in their home, and all of a sudden this ball lightning occurs, and they are so unlucky that they're right there where it occurs, and they were the focal point, and that's why it would have been so fast and gone out as quick.
Lightning to occur.
What is it?
What causes
your audio broke up a bit.
Sorry. What causes ball lightning to occur? I don't know a lot about it.
Well, Ron has researched ball lightning a little bit, so I'll let you go ahead and run that one.
Ball lightning basically occurs when there's a lot of ionization. In my case, there was a thunderstorm that had just rolled through. So this was after the thunderstorm. You know, that moment when the storm rolls through and then it's kind of building up to the next wave, so to speak. It's kind of like that. So that's kind of how this stuff works.
It's those moments when you can smell the ionized
Yes.
air and your hair on your arms is a little
Yes.
tingly.
Yes,
Okay.
and either one of two things is going to happen there. Either, you know, you're going to see ball lightning or something kind of glowing like an aura effect or St. Elmo's fire, or you're going to get struck by lightning. So it's one of those two things. I was inside when this happened, so, you know, I was pretty safe, but I was watching it from through the window, and this ball of light was just floating around. You know, it was actually following over top of some power lines, as I remember, which was just amazing. It was just like what's weird about ball lightning is it looks intelligent. It moves like it's intelligent. It moves like it's alive. You know, it's really cool. It's like you're looking at something that's like, that is totally alien, you know, and it really is, because it's not an everyday thing. It's weird. But I could see that, Joe. I could see, you know, but I don't know what could trigger it. Again, we're dealing with energy again, right? So now we've gone into more ions. So are we spontaneously creating a overload of ionization that could basically form a plasma? Because that's kind of what we're dealing with here. We're not really dealing with a heat. It's a plasma.
This kind of ties back with the poltergeist activity and how Jesse was talking about the extreme stress and trauma and things of that nature. It releases energy, and the psychokinetic energy is amplified. You have atmospherics coming into place, which, if you go through the vast majority of these cases, they take place in like England, Scotland, Ireland, places that have a whole lot of storms, really volatile weather on a really consistent basis. So you have a lot of thunderstorms. You have this possibility for extremely charged ionized air, and the possibility of somebody being under extreme duress and having these poltergeist-like, you know, activities around their home, and let's creating a perfect storm of sorts.
Yeah, right. And let's address the poltergeist thing, because a lot of people have that word has been overdone. And
it really has been.
It's RSPK. It's recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis is what it is. And it's basically the theory that we produce this emanation of psychokinetic energy ourselves unknowingly. And that a lot of the studies have been done on this. You know, it's usually a teenager who's just coming of age, going through puberty. Yeah, and it's almost always a female. And, you know, amazing, just weird stuff happens. You know, the whole rattling of pans, whatnot. So the theory is that this power builds up inside. Power is a weird word. I don't even like that, but you know what I'm trying to get at. It's energy. Yeah, it's that untapped energy that we have, and spontaneously it just erupts. Well, you know, in the olden days, that was obviously a ghost, so that's how it got labeled into that category. When we talk about poltergeist, to me, it is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, and that's that kind of describes it a little bit better. It says we don't really control it. And I could definitely see something like this. I could definitely see, you know, someone just producing an enormous amount of power. Yeah. And boom, you know, blowing up, I guess, right?
You know, when you're talking about, you know, RSPK, those are actually scientific terms, for lack of a better way to describe it.
It's a parapsychological term, yeah.
They were studied in these various parapsychology programs at Stanford, at Harvard. Ryan, that, you know, you've got all of these actual foundations and actual institutions that take these things very seriously and have studied them extensively and given us the lexicon that we use today that takes it kind of away from the mysticism and into the scientific realm.
Right. It's kind of like UFO and UAP, right, Joe?
Yeah, kind of like that. Now, conveniently though, you just brought up my number one favorite.
Is it aliens?
Is it aliens?
Yeah, aliens. You did it. Is aliens. So it goes back. They were linking some of this stuff in a way to cattle mutilation.
Okay.
You had a lot of the theories with spontaneous human combustion being linked to the likeness of some of the cattle mutilation, because the way you would see the tongues like removed and they looked almost burned out, remember, like it was cauterized,
like it was laser.
Yeah.
Yep, like it was laser cut. They were linking some ufologists were linking some of these spontaneous human combustions to possible UFO encounters. It might have been what happened to Travis Walton originally.
Maybe.
And that's why they brought him aboard to fix him, because they're like, oh crap, we just vaporized this dude. Let's reassemble his atoms.
Okay. I mean, I've heard
maybe that's why the story evolves, is because the reassemblization of atoms just really kind of fractaled everything.
Yeah, it could be that. But I like that theory better than anything I've heard so far.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that was my momentary brilliant flash of 2 million hertz, and I didn't explode.
2,000. 2,000 watts.
2,000. Yeah. 2,000, 2 million. There's not much difference other than a few zeros. It's fine. So
2 gigawatts.
2 gigawatts. But yeah, so they were linking these UFO reports back and forth, and they were looking to see if there were UFOs or strange phenomena in the skies around the same time that these people who had spontaneously combusted, and oddly enough, within a few days or weeks or so, there were actually sightings in those areas or in the immediate area, sometimes even. So brought into question the maliciousness of some of these abductions. Mm-hmm. Or was it an abduction gone wrong? Did somebody not have the beam me up Scotty button dialed in all the way to like human parameters, and oops, we fried this one.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah, that is an interesting theory. Could it have been an oops, right? We just think it's malicious, but maybe it was like, uh-oh.
And what if
Larry, you're not running the transporter ever again.
Right? But let's talk about the oops factor. Yeah. What if it was us and we were using this reverse engineered technology and somebody pressed the button and they were like, oh crap.
Yeah, good point. That's a good point.
Because there's theories out there that we've reverse engineered some of this off-world technology. Bob Lazar made that theory popular. The ancient astronaut theorists have I guess expounded upon that. But what if it wasn't necessarily aliens, but it was us using technology? What if? Here's another what if, but it kind of goes with the same, reverse engineered technology.
You're going to explode if you keep that up.
I know, right? What if they were trying to reverse engineer Tesla's technology?
Interesting.
And you had these blinks of mistakes where people were just unfortunate in the wrong place in their house at the wrong time, and wow, there they go. I don't know, but it's the things that keep me up at night.
Those things don't keep me up like that anymore, but
you just earlier that you're afraid to think the wrong
not right? Not anymore. You'll come to learn that I don't care anymore.
Yeah, Ron hates humans.
Yes. So basically, I'm in the camp of some kind of untapped power or untapped potential is where I'm at with this. I think there's a lot of evidence. The Shaolin monks are a great example of it, right?
They are.
They can raise their body temperature. They've actually taught people to raise their body temperature. So it's
not
been
just
proven.
That, but the living mummy.
Oh, good point. That's a really good point.
And when I say living, I use that term really loosely. It's basically a mummy that still has
the craziest thing I have ever heard of.
Electromagnetic pulse on it. There's no heartbeat, but it still emits energy, and it's someone who is said to have actually reached nirvana. And this is, I guess, their mummified remains here.
They start drinking some Isn't that how it works? They drink like some kind of a liquid that slowly poisons them, basically, and yeah, they kill themselves, but it preserves them
But that
from the inside out.
That liquid too could be turned in the body into some sort of battery.
It could very well be.
Which is why they still have that electromagnetic pulse.
It's weird, weird stuff. But it proves that we don't know. You know, that's what I'm getting at. It proves that our bodies can do these things. Go, Jess.
Can I pose another theory?
Oh, yeah.
Go for it.
All right. What do you think about the idea that perhaps these people have done some sort of deal with the devil and the deal came due?
Ooh.
It could be.
There's a song in this.
They were drugged to hell, burning.
Yeah, see, look at that. Just incinerated on the spot.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I mean, that's a possibility. That was actually one of the prevailing theories back in the early days of the research of this, is that it was some kind of demonic activity. But the deal with the devil one, that's one that, you know, I'd heard of the demonic activity stuff, but like the deal with the devil, I like that idea. It's, you know, it's a good one to think about.
It's a great
I'm on that path right now just because last week I watched Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke in it. Do you remember this? Do you remember this movie?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've watched almost all of Mickey Rourke's movies. I don't know why, but I like the guy.
I love Mickey Rourke. No, but Angel Heart. So it's this whole deal with the devil thing. So I was just thinking, like, well, okay, it's like the fires are hotter than the fires of hell. During the Victorian era, when this was going on, they would always say that this was, they would say it's God's punishment for drunken sinners, but it could be the devil's punishment for drunken sinners, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's as plausible as any others.
It is.
You know,
absolutely. I agree. When it comes to spontaneous human combustion, I just don't understand why it's not addressed as much as it used to be, because it's still a very relevant and very speculative topic. It's just as relevant as any of these other things.
Well,
it's really fascinating.
It really is fascinating. But one of the reasons that I don't think we hear about it as much is because, like Jesse had pointed out, there seems to be a demographic for spontaneous human combustion.
There's no cool memes.
And it could be now in this position where it happens and it just kind of gets brushed under the rug, like, oh, a house fire.
Yeah.
Or they dropped a cigarette on them, burned themselves, you know, all that stuff. And they could just be getting just brushed under the rug. So that way it doesn't wind up on Netflix Unsolved Mysteries, because they brought it back. But
no,
I mean, Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries could really use something, because I'm really sick and tired of the way Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries is ruining unsolved mysteries from my childhood. Bring back the weird crap. I want to feel like terror and, oh my God, what happened? Not true crime stuff. I can watch that on A&E all day long. Sorry, my rant's over.
I'll let it go. But what? All right, it's that time in the program where we ask the inevitable question: real or not? And this time I'm going to ask you to expound upon it. Real or not, and give me your best possible theory as to if it is real.
Jesse, you're up.
Well, why am I always first? Okay,
I'll go first.
Because you're the smart one.
I'll go first. Okay, so from my take, I'm going to say plausible, just because we have so much record that have been taken from various cases, and they're so anomalous. We can't discredit the anomalies that are taking place during these investigations, or, well, not necessarily taking place because they've already took place, but they're being discovered by these investigations into how these people died. Now, I can't say one way or the other what is causing it. However, what I can say is that, to me, I classify it 100% in the category of high strangeness, because there is no real scientific explanation for what is actually taking place. These people's bodies are being burned in a really concentrated way that almost seems intelligent, like it was done on purpose in a specific way, and it protected certain areas of the house or whatever, or it seems to be very directional. which kind of brings me back to my UFO hypothesis with the old lady who got burned to death in her chair, and everything in one direction was scorched, but everything in the other directions was safe. So, yeah, I'm going to go with plausible. That's where I'm at with it. There's too much evidence in this one. Unlike, Jersey Devil, which we were able to just really nail to the wall and beat the squatch out of it. This is one of those that it's very plausible. It seems to be something that's still happening. How frequently? I don't know. But there's too much on the record saying that it does happen, and we just don't understand why.
Jess.
Okay. Going through all of this, I was really skeptical through most of it. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of explanations for why this could happen, why that could happen. So there was the case of Mary Riese in 1951. She was sitting in her chair. She took 2 sleeping pills. Her son came to visit her. She was smoking a cigarette. He left, and then her landlady finds her the next morning, burnt to a crisp, gone, except for her foot in a slipper. Okay. And this is 1951. So I was like trying to think about this case in particular, because that was one of the first cases where you have actual forensic evidence, like you don't have forensic evidence from 1731. You've got forensic evidence from 1951. So just think about that whole situation. She's in her nightgown, she's in her robe, she's sitting in her chair, smoking a cigarette, she's had a sleeping pill. So she is out of it. She's not really fully aware of her situation. She's smoking. Maybe she dropped her cigarette. So I looked into what kind of fabrics, nightgowns and robes and things were made out of in that era. Rayon, cotton.
Yep.
These are both highly flammable materials. I was like, okay, so it seemed like an open and shut kind of thing. And this was one of the cases where I was like, all right, so this, it's obvious what happened here, right? So the investigators come in and they can't determine anything. And that was actually the woman that had the newspapers right by her body, or right by her, what was left of her scorched imprint into the chair, basically. But they couldn't figure out why nothing else was burned in the apartment, why it just burned her up completely, burned her bones and everything like that. The case actually went all the way up to the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover, I think, looked into it and everything and demanded answers on it, and they never came to a conclusion. I understand it probably wasn't a priority, but the fact that this went all the way up to the FBI and that they never came to a real conclusion of why this happened like it did, and it's still a mystery to this day, that kind of swayed me a little bit. But it also, the fact that the bones just completely they just completely go away. It takes a lot of heat very quickly to burn bones to ash. So I definitely think there is a supernatural element here. I think that I don't know if all the cases that are presented are of a supernatural origin, but I think that certainly a lot of them are, because there is just no scientific explanation for what happens to these people. Even if you look at it with a completely skeptical mind, you can only get your explanation so far before you hit a brick wall with it. So I'm going to go with Joe on this and go with plausible. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it could be. There's so many things it could be, like with everything else. It could be a litany of things. But I honestly think that this has to be some sort of supernatural or energy type thing that we just have no grasp on in any way, shape, or form.
I agree. I think that we all are. This is a unanimous vote. Very plausible. There's something here. So it's a little bit more beyond plausible. It's real, but we don't know what it is. The evidence is there. The trail is written in history. These things have occurred, and they are continuing to occur. And no one has a clue as to what it is. What it could be. Also with you, I think that we're dealing with something beyond actual normalcy or normal nature as we know it, that this does have a paranormal, whatever that means, explanation. And whether it be, a part of RSPK, whether it be a part of, like you said, someone's chakras aligning, perfectly and You know, I don't know. I mean, again, this just shows that there's so many things that we don't know. And we like to think we do know everything. But in this case, spontaneous human combustion is one of those things we do not know. I used to think that it was easily explained too, by the way. I know I talked about, worrying about exploding and whatnot. What got me over that was the fact that I really did believe that there was a logical explanation for it. But later on, as you do more research, it's kind of like anything else with this. It's kind of like UFOs. You can't deny it. Just because you can explain away, 9 out of 10, there's that one, isn't there? And if you can't explain that one away at all, as much as you try, there's something there. You can't deny that. And there's just too many little things here. There's definitely a pattern. So I think that you are dealing with something that it has a definite modus. It has a definite, it's there. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to try to guess anymore as to what it is. We can sit here and guess till doomsday. That's a good topic too, by the way. Doomsday.
Ooh, yeah.
Doomsday. Yep, that'll be
End
one we do in
times
the future.
Theories.
I like it. Anybody want to hear that? Let us know if you want to hear that one, and we'll fast track it. If not, we're going to go for some spooky stuff because we're entering spooky season.
It's time for the spooky stories. Woo!
Yes, spooky stories. But anyway, spontaneous human combustion, real. I hope I don't explode.
Well, Jess might be getting ready to explode for anybody watching the video. Something just a burst
Did
of
you see
energy
that?
shot across
It's
the screen.
screaming off. I'm sorry.
Did you see that?
So, all right, guys, we do have some announcements to go over. We are getting ready to enter into our Paint the Town Weird. If you guys are unfamiliar with that, or you're new since last year and you don't remember the Paint the Town Weird for Wild and Weird Con, we are going to be putting out black and white copies of flyers that you can grab off of our website, print, and put up in your town if you're in West Virginia or in the southern part of the state of West Virginia.
You can print them off in color if you're well to do. We won't stop you.
Yep. And but they'll be compatible to be able to print however you want. You can put them up in your local stores. Now, this is something that we do with a reward incentive. So you guys take pictures, post them up on social media. We see it because you're going to tag it with Wild and Weird WV and Paint the Town Weird. We're going to be monitoring those hashtags. We're going to see who's being active with it, and you will be rewarded. We promise, and you won't be disappointed. Second special announcement is for those of you who came to the Wild and Weird Workshop Bigfoot investigation, or well, we call them a Bigfoot roundup now, is what we're going to call it. We're going to be having 2 of those in 2022. So we had one this year. It was a blast. We've had people that just absolutely loved it.
Joe, do you have any reviews of that you might want to read?
I do.
Sorry. Go ahead, Joe. Why don't you read off one of those reviews? I know someone had some words for us.
So we're going to give you one of the reviews. This is from Boone and Trista Fullwood. The inaugural Bigfoot workshop was a huge success, if you ask me. My fiance and I had a blast. The guys covered everything from Sasquatch history to proper sighting evidence recovery, audio gathering techniques, as well as proper field research necessities, such as tracking, data collecting, and loadout. I myself walked away with knowledge that has boosted my ability to go into the field and conduct my own research and do it correctly. I now have the knowledge to get out on my own and confidently conduct research. I can't speak more highly of Joe, Ron, and Wayne, and Dave. They're stand-up guys, and I consider them friends after that evening. If you're interested in this field of research, you're doing yourself a favor by hanging out with these guys at the Bigfoot Roundup. Plus, Joe will cook a meal around the evening time, and you won't be disappointed with that either. Thanks, Boone. Much love for these guys, Boone and Trista Fullwood.
That's pretty high praise.
And we have several other reviews like this that we'll read off in the coming weeks and let you guys hear them.
It was really weird to hear that, by the way.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because it's really cool. I mean, that's what we wanted. We wanted to be able to reach out and get these people, give them some skills,
Yeah.
and let them go
And
out there and become the next level, basically.
so we are hosting this event 2 times next year. We are going to do probably most likely a spring and a fall. One will be in Canoa State Forest, just like last year's event. The other will be conducted in the Monongahela National Forest in southern West Virginia. Well, southeastern. But that will be really, really cool. We're going to be doing that in conjunction with Dave Spinks and his new shop. That'll be fun. And he's got an area, or well, his location that he has an area for us to do indoor classroom, and then go out in the field into the Mon, because he's only like 2 miles away from it. And so it's going to make things really easy, and it's going to be a good time. So you guys, once we get the dates set and mark your calendars, you will want to be at one of these, because it's not going to be like anything you've been to on the East Coast.
Well, I know that the last one, we had a lot of people interested after it happened.
We did.
And, we made it pretty well known, for months in advance.
It was very well advertised.
I just, I think it was a lot more than what people thought it was going to be. And it was really cool. I really had a lot of fun that day.
When people saw the pictures and the video, it all just kind of came together for me. They're like, oh, when are you guys going to do this again?
Different. It was different, man. It wasn't just, going out and talking. I mean, we went out, we talked, we got to learn some stuff. They learned how to cast stuff, like actually cast stuff, which was really cool.
And this was the first time that anything had been done like this in West Virginia.
Yes, it was.
And so people were ready for it, and we're coming back with it again, and we're going to make it bigger and better than ever, because we actually have some folks who are going to come in. You're not going to just have to listen to us speak the entire time. You're going to be able to hear from other researchers, just like you will from Wild and Weird Con, because this is think of this as an extension of Wild and Weird Con, which is the next direction we're going. By the time this episode airs, we will be 31 days out from Wild and Weird Con. And you guys will not want to miss that. Wild and Weird Con at Chief Logan State Park Lodge. We're going to be there with veteran researchers of various fields of the unexplained. They're going to be teaching you and lecturing. So we have the workshops going on outdoors in a gazebo. We have the lecture hall that's going to have people in there giving their presentations and doing more lecture-based rather than hands-on. But what goes on under the gazebos will be hands-on. You'll be able to work with people. It's going to be great. Then you'll get to hang out with everybody.
And don't forget the vendors. I mean, my goodness.
Absolutely. We have some amazing artists who are going to be there set up vending all of their topic specific wares. This isn't going to be an event where you're going to see some third-party sell vendors out there. All of these folks have been hand selected because they are handmade artists and they make it all themselves. So you won't want to miss it. They're just absolutely phenomenal people who are going to be there. The guest lineup is fantastic. You definitely haven't seen some of these folks anywhere else. Two of which I think is going to be their speaking debuts, which is our curator of the museum out there in Southern Ohio. She's going to be doing a presentation on mounds and giants. And then our very own Jesse and Helbent Holler's presentation will be going on there, and it's going to be a blast. So we have 2 amazing female researchers who are going to be giving presentations.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be really cool.
It's going to be a blast.
Going to try to get Emily on before. She's the museum educator, and she, wow. You remember how when we met Stanton Friedman?
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of how you are when you're around her, because it's like she knows more than, look, my hand's disappearing. It's magic. Look.
You're phasing out.
I do that. It's right before you explode, I hear. But no, she is she knows her stuff. So it's going to be really cool to hear from that, in my opinion. So really cool stuff. And I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome.
Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up right now. If you guys want to continue listening to Wild and Weird Radio, simply head over to wildandweirdwv.com, click on the podcast tab, and you'll be able to continue listening to your heart's content to over, I think, 78, 80 episodes, something like that. You can go back and listen to our entire backlog right from your computer. Or you can find us anywhere podcasts are found. If you're listening on Apple iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and review. It's a really, really small act on your part that has a huge impact on our end because it gives us more visibility and more reach. So every one of those 5-star rating and reviews, we really appreciate those guys. They do not go unrecognized. If you have a sighting to report or you want to become a member on the show, just shoot us an email at wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. You can reach out to us at any time, and one of us will respond to you very promptly. If you want to continue supporting Wild and Weird Radio and keep it free for eons to come, head to wildandweirdwv.com, click on the shop tab, where you'll be able to look and peruse through all of our wares. Check out the this year's Mothman Christmas ornament.
That's right.
That is an original Christmas ornament that you cannot get anywhere else other than Wild and Weird, West Virginia. It glows in the dark. It's got glow-in-the-dark red eyes.
It's magic.
You want this hanging on your tree. Trust me.
It's not really magic, but it's cool.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. This has been a fantastic installment of Wild and Weird Radio. Stay wild and weird, everybody.
Do not burst into flames.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
See you next time.